we'd like to thank President Trump for what he did. It is much appreciated by our people. We thank you for the work that you're doing, Alex. We ask people to support us, please. Please support us. Go to our website, donate via PayPal. Help us to continue to fight the good fight. We are fighting the good fight, not just on behalf of our people, but on behalf of our people all over the world. Please help us to do this. We are a last bastion, and we need your support. This thing is going to turn nasty. The people are positioning themselves. The various centers of power are clearly positioning themselves for a conflict. You only have to look at the material, and we think it's going to get very, very rough very soon.
Because there's this conquest attitude, just loot it all now, run off with the money, and then there's nothing there. Why do you think every African country that's kicked the Europeans out has collapsed back into the dust?
Oh, Alex, that's a very difficult subject, but there is white, naive, silly, foolish people will tell you they'll never do this because they don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And then they do it. And then whites will say, but they'll never do that because they don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They don't care about the goose that lays the golden egg. What they want is absolute power for themselves all of the time. They would rather have 100% of 10 than 10% of a million or a billion or a trillion.
Trump warned that South Africa would implode in 2013. And boy, has he been right. Doesn't mean we're defending apartheid. Doesn't mean we're defending Muammar Gaddafi in the north. But he was stabilizing much of the area. As soon as he was taken out, everything around it is collapsing. And it's so, you know, whether it was Gaddafi's system or South African system, it's very, very sad. And Simon Roche is one of the leaders of the movement that has been pointing out that the major political parties, both the ANC and others, were moving in a big way towards exterminating all the whites and taking their land. And that was their political campaign platforms. And we're going to play some of those videos coming up. But now you've had the president and the deputy come out and say, we're going to start taking the land. They tried. Local police would not carry it out, at least in some areas. You have killings every day going on. You have Africa imploding all over the place. You have the numbers 100 million now, reportedly, according to our South African sources, from 50 million in the census. So Africa is collapsing to the north, into Europe. It's collapsing into the south. And Simon Roche runs a super high-tech organization in modern farming. When I said they're like Amish, reading books about it, talking to other folks, they're out in the middle of the country. They work really hard. They're Christians. Yeah, they're praying every couple hours, and they're not living in fancy surroundings. I see that as like Mennonites or like Amish light, but he pointed out to me off air that we're not really an Amish sect, which is true. That comes out of Switzerland. They're from the Netherlands, but they've been there 400 years. And I've looked at the history books. There was almost no one down there. As soon as they made everything green, all these big tribes moved down to be around the money and around the success, which is fine. Then the British invaded to take it over. But this is all history. And it looks like the British today are the ones manipulating because they want a failed state like the Chinese do to not have any industry or any life, just come in and extract things. We'll talk big picture coming up. We'll look at the close in here in just a little while. But I saw articles where, out of the major Canadian broadcasters and the U.S. broadcasters, South Africa leader fact-checks Trump on white farmers' tweet. They don't show the video. They just say, he fact-checks them. When you actually see what Julius Malema said, he said, yeah, we're going to kill you. Yeah, we're going to take your land. We're going to play what he said in English. So our own media, the British government and others are saying, yes, take the white farmers' land. But I just saw a video we'll show next segment of Zimbabwe where they killed all the farmers and drove them out. Now that dictatorship's out for decades, the blacks are hugging the whites and begging them to come back. And what are they begging to come back? The Christianity, ladies and gentlemen. There it is, Zimbabwe farmers coming back. This is what folks think after they've been gone for a while. So that's the breakdown. He's with us the rest of the hour. It's SUID Landers, Suidlanders.org. Simon Roche is head of the office of the headquarters of the world's largest non-state civil defense organization, Southlanders of South Africa. once an ANC activist, he now works tirelessly to prepare for impending catastrophe in the Rainbow Nation. He also lives in Johannesburg and is the proud father of many children. And he's predicted all of this here on the broadcast last year, this year, March 1st. It's all happened. So why don't you, for people this segment, I appreciate you joining us, give people the big view of what's really going on in South Africa versus Hollywood, who the players are. From what I've read, the fact that most of the African tribes want you there, but the communists don't. Explain what's going on.
The big picture, Alex, is that South Africa has had multiracial democracy for about 24 years. And in that period, there has been a steady decline of many facets of the country. And it's now reached the point where the government is saying that it is going to expropriate white and owned land without compensation, on the false basis that the land was stolen. Our president has made it clear that we have to rectify the original sin of South Africa, completely overlooking those portions of land that were uninhabited, as proven by white and black historians alike, overlooking the fact that the west of the Great Fish River of South Africa, approximately 40% of the country, had never seen a black settlement in any way, shape, or form ever by the time that the whites and blacks met.
And that's because populations mainly lived on the sea, and I mean, everywhere in the world.
Yeah, exactly, in the sea and towards the north. Our country is sort of strangely shaped. So if I speak about north and west, it's kind of the equivalent of south and north. The actual reality is this, that much of that land was bought. Let's not even talk about right of conquest, which is recognized by all black tribes in Africa. There is no dispute over the land that was taken from the Hottentot and Khoi people, the Bushmen and the Hottentot people. There is no dispute over that. There's no dispute over the land that the Zulus took from the Xhosas. There's no dispute over the land taken by the Matabele. It's only land that whites might have taken, and in many cases, it was never taken. It was either not occupied or it was obtained by treaty in those cases. So we're in a crisis now where the ANC said, well, right, we're going to take the land. This is our intention. This is our plan. But what we'll do, because we're Democrats, good people, we're going to hold a kind of a national referendum. We'll permit people to write in from all over South Africa and tell us their opinions, and we'll stage a road show across the country. And people can come and address the members of our parliament directly and tell them what they think about it. And the two processes were not directly in parallel, they overlap.
So that's like when our own government says, we're going to ban this, but we're going to let you make comment, but they do what they want.
Right. 600 of the 700,000 written responses were opposed to the taking of the land. So the government probably said, well, we'll have to reopen that process. And they issued an instruction to their members, the African National Congress Party members, this time you better all write in, send faxes, emails, do whatever you got to do.
So let's be clear, the vast majority of the black and minority white members did the right thing and said, don't take people's land, but the party wants it.
The party wants the land for itself. Everybody must get used to one thing right from the beginning. There is not enough land to keep people happy. You can't give 50 million people 30,000 farms. That's not maths. So who's going to get the farms? And as it is, I'd like to add one other thing. There is the fallacy that the 8.5% white population of South Africa owns 90% of the land, or whatever you like. It's a complete fiction. To give you one example, and I could give you many, we'd be here all night. In the province of KwaZulu-Natal, the Zulu people as a nation do own and have always owned 32% of the province. There was never a case of 10% of the people owning 90% of the land. It is simply a fallacy. I'll tell you something that you might find interesting. The New York Times contacted me yesterday for an interview. We did an interview. They asked me about the trip to the USA last year. They asked me who we saw and so on. I said to them, well, you know, we saw some good people. Some people were not really our cup of tea. And they said, well, give us an example of somebody that you didn't like. I said, Dr. David Duke. Do you know how they reported it this morning? They said, we met Dr. David Duke, completely overlooking the fact. So this narrative...
Stay there. I know. No, I know. The New York Times is calling people asking if I'm grabbing men's butts at the office. I mean, it is just, because they go, wait, he's a Christian conservative. If we can say he grabs men's butts, maybe his supporters won't support him. You know, it's funny that Simon Roche of Southlanders, SUID Landers.org, one of the main leaders there of the farmer groups, brought the New York Times. I mean, I've known the New York Times is bad for a long time, but I've had, let me not exaggerate, 6 people call me the last week, some of which I haven't seen in years. And then they've called like first cousins, second cousins, you name it. And they say, we hear Alex Jones grabs men and fondles them around the office. And the people say, no, we've never seen him fondle anybody, not a woman, not a man. But that goes back to that fake EEOC complaint where the person said, who the Daily Mail admits they paid, by the way, said, well, he never asked me out, but I felt like he was grooming me for gay sex. So telepathically now, this is going on. And I later learned from other people involved that the lawyers are sitting around and they're like, wait, people don't care about an employment problem. Let's say, what'll hurt a conservative? They go, oh, let's say he's gay, which we're not even we're not attacking anybody here. So that's what I'm getting at is, he brings up the New York Times. He's like, I don't like David Duke when I was in America. That turns into Simon Roche loves David Duke. This is the murdering of the truth. That's why at this point, used to I might talk to a reporter a little bit, because at least they get some of what you said. No. You could tell them the sky is blue. They'll say it's red. You cannot talk to them. They use it as the cover for their lie. And you have to understand, folks, they're going for broke. But Simon, I want to get into the current state, Trump coming out. We've got who the different players are in South Africa and how this always follows the same path. Please continue.
Yeah, very simply, the ruling party is the African National Congress of Nelson Mandela. They've been in power for 24 years solid. We have an election coming up next year in 2019. Their lapdog, the party that they have founded to occupy the political territory that they had to concede for world opinion, the African National Congress, couldn't be seen to be Marxist or openly Marxist. They found a party called the Economic Freedom Fighters. This party is ostensibly at loggerheads with them, always shouting, fighting, arguing, condemning, and criticizing, but actually they're implementing, or the driving force behind the implementation of certain written, recorded African National Congress policies in their, what they call their National Democratic Revolution documents. The ANC wants a national democratic revolution, a socialist revolution. They can't be seen to be the ones doing it, so they found a party of firebrands, and these guys are saying, we've got to do this, we've got to do this. The ANC then says, well, look, we probably should. You know, the poor blacks don't have any land. The whites have got everything, and we've got an election coming up. So it's chaos here at the moment. The value of our currency has plunged. There are more than 19,000 of just 45,000 commercial farming units. 19,000 farms for sale right now in South Africa. Some farmers are not planting crops. Other farmers are trimming down their stock, their livestock herds. Other farmers are renting. I spend a lot of time with farmers. I know this well. Other farmers are renting equipment rather than buying it themselves, and renting land rather than making, expansions.
That's right. I've also read then that yields are plunging and that famine could hit.
The yields are plunging. We have become a net importer of food, which nobody ever foresaw happening, particularly 25 years ago when we were told that the African National Congress would guarantee us a new South African rainbow nation utopia. And these things happen a little bit by little bit by little bit. They bring in a certain law, people get hurt and offended, and then they...
And this is a microcosm of America and the West, where they sell Christians the idea of everybody in harmony, but then the left cheats and makes their whole thing racially based.
That is precisely correct. And it goes to this thing of the New York Times trying to draw a line between David Duke and Donald Trump through me. In other words, Simon Roche responding, Donald Trump tweeting about this thing, Mike Pompeo, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Well, we've spoken to Simon and he's big buddies with David Duke. This is...
Yeah, so go ahead and kill the white farmers. Go ahead and let South Africa fail, because David Duke, when you said, I don't like David Duke, that becomes you love David Duke. why couldn't the New York Times just be pro-prosperity for South Africa? Why do they, yeah.
Because they have an agenda. They have an agenda, Alex. By now, if you, not you, clearly you've been saying a lot of this stuff long before the rest of us woke up, never mind got out of bed. But if you can't see this, there's something wrong with you. The evidence is now overwhelming. There is an all-out assault on Western European-derived Caucasian Christian culture. That's just a reality. None of this stuff is happening in Uzbekistan, Vietnam, and Borneo. It's all happening in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Western Europe, the USA, and to the whites of South Africa. If people cannot see it, the problem is with them, not with the evidence.
And look, you have cold-blooded corporations. Look at 90% of the world being non-white. They're all a bunch of old white guys. They don't care. They just want power. They've already exploited the third world. And so they've got the West being Christian saying, let's all work together. They exploit the fact that we are trying to have a big tent because we love God and, you know, God's for all peoples. They exploit our openness as a weakness. While we're going, let's all love each other, they are bringing in third world populations, radicalizing them. And like you said, the blacks voted, you know, almost unanimously to not take your land. They understood that everybody was working together, and it was Christian prosperity and a rainbow coalition, but they said no. The leadership said, no, we're going to kill them, we're going to run them out because they want power. And obviously we know who's really running the ANC, the British government, the globalists that have actually backed this. They want South Africa poor, just like North Africa. They killed Gaddafi so that nobody gets anything. They want squalor. Just like when the Chinese come in, they build a big camp. The outsiders get nothing. But when the West comes in, railroads, medicine, everything, the Christians lift everybody up, and the globalists say, no, the Africans die. And I think that's the big secret truth here.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's a bit like David Icke's Luciferian consciousness. You can call it crazy if you like, but that's another example of a person, yourself, Donald Trump, and others who were prescient about this stuff, uncannily prescient. This thing is clearly directed at a certain culture, a certain religion, a certain ethos.
They want to get Christianity. That's it. So explain that. Why do they want to get Christianity so bad?
That's what this comes down to, and this is what we've been saying for a long, long, long time, and people laugh at us. They scoff, like they scoff and sneer at you, except that when you get proved right, then they find another angle of attack.
We're going to come back and play some of these clips, but what is the end game? I mean, the numbers. I see the videos, are the slaughtered whites, tortured to death, and we've got, in fact, I forgot to play the clip. MSNBC made a joke about it and said, big deal if whites are being killed.
Yeah, that's lovely. And the little girls raped?
They literally think it's funny on the news.
Yeah, they think it's very funny. These people are perverts, Alex. And people like you and I have to ensure that our children don't marry into those gene pools, that we warn everybody that we can. These people are perverse to the marrow of their bones. That's a reality. They will happily take your money to fund birth clinics in Uganda while telling you not to breed. They'll happily tell you that you as a Christian are meant to accept Muslims whose God tells them to hate you and to relentlessly hate you and never to stop hating you. It's unbelievable.
Well, they're trying to get everybody to turn off their life force, and we'll play some of these clips when we come back. This guy came out and said, get the Jews, get the Christians, get everybody, and then our media ran it and said, oh, the black leader checks Trump. Nobody's killing whites. Nobody wants their land. And in the very video they play, he says, we're going to get your land. I mean, it is just, these fact checkers are unbelievable. Fact checking is the biggest joke on the planet when it's run by George Soros and the rest of these people. We'll be right back. Infowars.com, newswars.com. Simon Roche live from South Africa, straight ahead. All right, let me ask one of the main leaders of the Africana farmers, Simon Roche, where he thinks this is all ending. Who's behind it? I've got several of these clips I want to play as well, but I want to ask him right now, where does this end? Because I had you on last year, I had you on this year, and they had Media Matters and mainstream corporate media say, Jones is insane. He's got a farmer on claiming they're killing whites. Why, no one ever kills whites. And they fire reporters that report on that here in the U.S. And then they, oh, no one's trying to take land, when the president, the vice president, the defense minister are saying, we're not going to take your land, we're going to kill you. And then when whites try to leave, they tell Australia, don't take those races, they stay here. So just describe where you think this is going.
we believe that it's going to end in a crisis of epic proportions. We believe that this situation is intractable. That doesn't stop us from being decent, respectable, God-fearing, hardworking, tax-paying people. But it's one thing to be law-abiding. It's another thing to be foolish. And we believe if we examine the trajectory of our state, that it is going to end in a collision. We believe that there will be a civil war in this country. If there's not, the world can laugh at us forever. Our friends, our family, and so on can mock us and shun us until the days of our deaths. But so far, we've been right every step of the way. We have never, ever made any error in our predictions because they're obvious, conspicuous predictions. We said that they would take the land. We said that they would disempower us. We said that they would take our weapons away as they shut down the commando system or as they asked for weapons to be given in, handed in for free in the year 2000. At the same time, they destroyed 199,000 weapons in the hands of the commando system that protected the farmers and destroyed only 6,000 of the 2 million acknowledged weapons that the African National Congress brought into the country illegally. What does that tell you? They are trying to disempower us. They don't want us to have weapons. They don't want us to have a commando system to protect the farmers. For what? What could be the reason? We believe that this is one giant, enormous setup. If we end up being wrong, fine. In the meantime, we will pay our tax.
Yeah, but they're not wrong. I mean, the commies are all saying they're going to kill you. This is happening in country after country in Africa. This is the blueprint because the establishment wants to come in and loot everything. Let's go ahead and get into this individual that our media is saying fact-check Trump. Then he basically says stuff even worse. Let's talk about Julius. Tell us about this guy.
Julius Malema is the head of the Economic Freedom Fighters Party. He's the former head of the African National Congress's very, very ferocious youth league. He is the guy who famously said on I believe it was the 6th of November, 2016, I'm not calling for the slaughter of all whites yet. He has subsequently said that his mission in life is to cut the throat of whiteness. And he is the main agitator behind the taking of the land. He has also warned farmers that he is going to have no mercy on them.
That's right. And then we were told to worship Nelson Mandela. He was a total front of the globalists, we know. His wife literally hung tires over little kids' heads, black and white. And that's another thing. The numbers of the black-on-black crime by these groups, it's incredible.
It's phenomenal, Alex. You know, that's one of the main arguments of the mainstream. They'll say, well, blacks are also being killed. That's fine, but we don't want to be killed. Thank you very much. You know, the government released statistics on farm murders on the 4th of May this year for the first time in 7 years. The fact that they hadn't released them for 7 years should tell you something. That should be enough. We shouldn't have to say any more than that. That they were keeping.
Yeah, what do you make of U.S. commentators joking, saying big deal if you get killed or only a few of you have been killed? What's the real numbers?
The real numbers are difficult to tell, but the minimum possible rate, if you take the statistics and you do simple arithmetic, the minimum possible rate is 97 farmers per 100,000 per annum. Compare that to a murder rate in the USA of about 4.88 per 100,000, a national murder rate in South Africa of about 34 per 100,000. But I would say to you that the murder rate of farmers, given that these statistics are slightly murky, they've tried very hard not to be explicit. If we give them the benefit of the doubt, if we say that some of the people murdered on the farms are farm workers, one or two here or there, if we give them every benefit of the doubt, we would say that the murder rate of farmers, according to the statistics produced by the South African government, not by us, is 169 per 100,000. If that's not enough for the New York Times and for MSNBC and for the rest, may it be on their heads.
Well, they love it. They work for Soros, so they don't care. He's a Nazi collaborator. They love it. They watch all these evil wars. They run the whole thing. Let's go to Julius Malema with a few of his clips. Here it is.
We must be prepared for Donald Trump and all of them. We're not scared of them. We remain unshaken. Actually, we are more determined after the Donald Trump tweet to expropriate our land without compensation. There's no white genocide here. It's an absolute rubbish to say there is white genocide. There is black genocide in the USA. They are killing black people in the USA. There is black genocide here in South Africa. Black people are being killed all the time. A farmer has been sentenced to life now recently for having killed a farm worker. Imagine if it was a black person sent life for having killed a white person. It will be news all over. But this black person was killed and a white farmer sent to prison for long time in jail. It's once off reporting and it's done. There's no scientific evidence that points to any white genocide in South Africa. It's not true. And we're not scared of such things. We're not going to be distracted by anyone. Only death will stop us. Not Trump, not poverty, not sanctions. We have all of them in our mind. We know the consequences of what we're asking.
Yeah, another failed state. And so here's the EFF leader, because I watched the whole 7-minute clip. Here's a clip. Well, this crazy thing about Jews are training a group of right-wing people to kill them when they're all over saying we're going to kill you and take your land. Here it is.
There's a group of white right-wingers who are being trained by Jews in Pretoria to be snipers. Snipers. They are not training guns. In the EFF, we are training toy guns. They're dealing with real stuff.
All right, let's stop there. Now, let's go back to the full 7-minute press conference. He did this yesterday. Here he is talking about the EU, Trump. They're all coming down here. I mean, all coming down there. It's the big banks and corporations want Africa to fail because they come in with private contractors, just rope off what they want. They don't want Africa that's got 60% of the world's good fields to be the breadbasket of the world. I want to develop Africa. I want Africa to be happy and fun. I want Africa to be civilized. But the whole globalist plans in Cecil Rhodes is to not let it develop. Here he is breaking it down.
Trump, my view is that Donald Trump is contributing in this debate which is going on. And in the process of contribution, Donald Trump made a similar contribution that were made by white people, all of them, in the hearings, in the public hearings. Donald Trump is not saying anything we have not heard from white people in all the hearings. I even commented and said, I'm still to meet a white person who support expropriation of land without compensation. So why are you shocked? I see leaders of the EFF and everybody responding to Donald Trump. I don't have time for nonsense. I expected this. And more backlash is going to come. If South Africans are not ready to expropriate the land because they are scared of sanctions, they are scared of backlash, then don't vote for the EFF. Because you vote for us, we're going to expropriate land. And Donald Trump will come for us. And Britain will come for us. And the EU will come for us. I said, and I said this throughout my life in the movement, that for everything good comes the pain before. If you're not prepared, South Africa, to take the pain.
So he goes on, just like Venezuela and North Korea fail. He's even getting him ready for decades of him to extract billions out. And I guess he'll have 25 Ferraris or whatever. We're going to come back to 5 more minutes with our guest. But this is just insane. It's the big mega banks that funded the takedown of South Africa and got rid of one bad system, brought in something worse. It's all on record. And this is their plan here in America and their plan everywhere. Just briefly, InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com. I get so busy I don't plug for the whole hour. They're trying to shut us down. You know that. We have amazing products. Knock out the sleep aid, 40% off. Ultimate Female Force, healthy herbs for your wife, your girlfriend, 50% off. Just try some. It funds the broadcast. You can't lose. And Beyond Whey, Beyond Spirulina, it's bone broth with a bunch of other key ingredients, now $19.95, 50% off introductory offer, the new formulation of Ultimate Bone Broth. So Simon Roche, one of the main leaders, the leader over in South Africa, predicting the land seizure, because they said they'd do it, the murder of white farmers. And as he said, they had a vote, and the majority of blacks said, no, we love the white farmers. We work with them. They work with us. We're good. But it's that communist group that's also, we know, double the population the last 20 years, bringing in folks from Northern Africa who then promised all these goodies. So in the 5 minutes we have left, Simon, it's just an amazing time to see Trump stand up against this and our own media demonize it, the British government say, yeah, we support taking land. What's really behind this, and what are other key points you'd like to add?
Well, we'd like to thank President Trump for what he did. It is much appreciated by our people. We thank you for the work that you're doing, Alex. We ask people to support us, please. Please support us. Go to our website, donate via PayPal. Help us to continue to fight the good fight. We are fighting the good fight, not just on behalf of our people, but on behalf of our people all over the world. Please help us to do this. We are a last bastion, and we need your support. This thing is going to turn nasty. The people are positioning themselves. The various centers of power are clearly positioning themselves for a conflict. You only have to look at the material, and we think it's going to get very, very rough very soon.
Because there's this conquest attitude. Just loot it all now, run off with the money, and then there's nothing there. Why do you think every African country that's kicked the Europeans out has collapsed back into the dust?
Oh, Alex, that's a very difficult subject, but there is white, naive, silly, foolish people will tell you they'll never do this because they don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. And then they do it. And then whites will say, but they'll never do that because they don't want to kill the goose that lays the golden egg. They don't care about the goose that lays the golden egg. What they want is absolute power for themselves all of the time. They would rather have 100% of 10 than 10% of a million or a billion or a trillion. The point is that I am the big man. I want all of the power for myself. I want everything that exists for myself, and I want no rivals. It is a bit like Mobutu Sese Seko of Zaire, who changed his name when he assumed power. And the translation of his name that everybody knows is the cockerel to whom all the hens in the henhouse belong. He changed his name when he took power in Zaire to that name.
He changed his name to the head. He changed his name to the head rooster.
The head rooster, and he famously would sleep with the wives of the men that he appointed to positions of power, and that's what this is about. They don't care how much destruction there is. They don't care if people are wiped out. The point is to gain as much power as possible. It is a Marxism of a particular type, and it is being supported by the globalists because the globalists know that when this crisis occurs, somebody's going to have to run the mines and somebody's going to have to exploit the minerals and so on and so forth, and they will position themselves to take care of that. Naturally, they can't lose. In fact, it's in their interest to sponsor.
They use a society that's trying to be Christian and open and uplifting to get control, and they blow everything out and sit there in armored fortresses that no one else has electricity, like Ceausescu. They have everything, their helicopters, everything. They just come extract it. It's a big joke. And, you know, you read about the stuff that's gone on in Africa. It's so sad. And then the American left all backs up behind it, not because they're dumb, but because they work for the big corporations that are actually going to do it. It's amazing. Simon Roche, we got 30 seconds. Anything else?
Well, I'd just like to say people should keep their eyes on this matter, keep focused on it. Our leader, Mr. Gustav Müller, has been unerringly correct on this stuff. He's a bit like you, Alex. He looks at the facts, not at the fiction. He looks at what's really happening on the ground rather than what people are told to believe. You know, the kind of thing of who you're going to believe, me or your lying eyes. Please keep watching, people. You will see for yourselves what is transpiring in this country.
And it's a prelude to what the left wants to do here and what they're openly teaching and pushing. God bless you, Simon Roche. We'll talk to you very, very soon. And thank you so much. God bless you. We may send some reporters out there to actually get a frontline view of this. All right, we'll be back with another special guest. Whatever you do, spread those live links. That's what gets around the censors.
We're bringing back one of the biggest fan-favorite formulas we've ever offered with even better ingredients. Ultimate Bone Broth. Infowars Life is proud to bring you a powerhouse bone broth formula to help push you to your limits. This incredible formula will help you get the most out of your workout with the power of ultra high-quality bone broth one of the most popular health trends on the planet. Built with more than 7 different superfoods and crucial compounds, Ultimate Bone Broth will help support your healthy muscles, digestion, tendons, and ligaments, while also supporting your body's fight against free radicals. This incredible chicken bone broth formula contains time-tested ingredients such as turmeric root, chaga mushroom, goji berry powder, bee pollen, and alfalfa herb powder to support your body. It's time to experience what Ultimate Bone Broth can do for you. Get a bottle of the all-new version of a fan-favorite product today at InfoWarsStore.com.